second episode of the show, and today we have a very special guest. She's a good friend of mine, and you probably know her from being the lead singer of one of the biggest breakout OPM bands of like maybe the last half decade or so. So she's the lead singer of Any Name's Okay, and tonight she's going to be herself. So welcome to the show, Sofia Abrogar.
Thank you, Andrew. Lovely to be here.
We haven't hung out in a while. How have you been?
Been good. Online class has been kinda but generally, yeah, I'm pretty lucky to have a not so bad quarantine experience.
Is there anyone that you feel like has had it super worse than you?
Well,
As in, like in
I
your general vicinity, you know, because like, a lot of people have it worse right now. But...
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't know, just from reading news online or even just on social media, with all these people putting out their GCash accounts to afford laptops for school, like it's crazy to watch. It's crazy to monitor. But yeah, generally I've been okay. Yeah.
That was super super depressing. But I do have a story about that. Kasi,
really?
Because there was this one person who was saying na please donate to my GCash, mga Exol. And then there was like a person who replied and was like, hey, I'm an army, but I'll still help you. And to me it's like, you don't have to say that, you know, like you're making it sound like alam mo swerte ka na mabait ako. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why do you lead with I'm an army?
Oh my god, K-pop is literally just like politics. It has its own
toxic.
world. Yeah, it's
crazy. It's really toxic. Do you ever get like really toxic about K-pop?
Well, I'd like to think I don't, because I'm really just in it for the fun. Like I started listening to Korean music back in third year high school pa, so I guess it's been 5 years.
So you have like
and it
nothing
was really
to prove
just
to any other.
Yeah, like it's just like, you know, welcome, I guess. Some of my closest friends I've met there, so it's not like I'm looking for a bigger fan base or like an army. Like I'm purely satisfied with my small group of K-pop friends. So yeah, that's it.
I've noticed that like people who are we weren't planning to talk about K-pop at all.
Yeah.
But I noticed the people who are like really toxic about K-pop usually are the people who come from a place where they didn't like K-pop at all before.
Yeah.
You know?
There's this thing, right, where a lot of K-pop fans are saying that they're bullies before suddenly like the thing that they were bullied for. I'm lucky to have not had that experience when I was younger, but then I mean I can understand the low-key resentment of it all.
On the topic of music, I guess the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is that even if it's not the freshest issue right now, I feel like we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't talk about Route 196, which for those of you who don't know was basically a mecca for local music, because the local indie scene is really built on gigs, right?
Truly,
like more
yes.
than SoundCloud or whatever. It's really the live shows, and
Yeah.
Obviously you credit Root with a lot of shit. So
For sure.
I don't know, how did you feel like when you heard about it closing down?
Honestly, when I saw some of the pubs that came out, the ones with the hashtags na all roads lead to Root, I honestly thought it was some sort of like publicity stunt or something. Like I couldn't process. And then suddenly I realized that they were closing down. Then I was receiving messages from my bandmates, from music scene friends, and they were just saying that it's closed for real. And I was honestly, it's just heartbreaking. For me, Root is really one of those places that kind of opened my world up as a sheltered kid who, you know, prior to college had never really had that sort of exposure outside of school or family or friends, church. That was really
that was, like your first time like drinking and going
yeah,
out.
one of those first places, that I could say that I stayed up until 3 a.m. there or
Wild.
had drinks with friends. I think one memory that stands out to me is not actually as a musician, but as a gig organizer. So, I'm part of the UP Music Circle, and the first gig production I ever headed for them, and the only one so far, was our anniversary gig last year, and it was set in Root, and that was the first time that I really got to participate on the behind the scenes of a gig, like everything from publicity to merchandise, to handling logistics. Like it was really such a different experience because, I mean, as a musician, it's difficult too. I mean, there's a lot to do, but I think a lot of people, especially in the audience, they can like take for granted the work that goes into just producing a gig. So it was really cool to see things come to life in Root.
I feel like as an events host, sometimes there are a lot of organizers who can be like really suplad. But then it's also like they have a lot of shit that they have to work with.
Yeah.
I also can't really blame them sometimes.
Yeah.
And you were saying that was like your first experience when it came to the rain's really hard.
Same.
Well, we live like 5 minutes away from each other, like 10 minutes.
True.
We just live like over there.
Yeah.
It's not like a thing where I have to ask you kung umulan sa inyo because it's like like this is real time right now.
It's likely, yeah.
But you were saying that that's like your first experience when it comes to handling stuff behind the scenes, and I don't know, did you like that feeling?
I think, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Or are you still like with the performance side of it? If you had to choose.
Well, I think I would definitely still say the performing side because I think that's where I'm more experienced, and I guess it's what I'm used to. But then I definitely enjoyed production. Like I'm such a nerd for organizing. Like minutes of the meeting, I got your template.
The last time we hung out, I saw you had like 5 emails, and that was just like so funny to me.
Yeah, I have like an email account for every phase of my life.
See, that's why I had to ask you about what your email was, because I was like, I didn't know which one. You know, the last time we talked, you were still shifting to journalism, and it's a year later. Like obviously with me, like who's also involved in like entertainment stuff, it really is like a completely different world from
truly
from journalism, and I just want to know like how you've been adjusting to that.
Well, I honestly really truly love the course I'm taking now, which is journalism, as a shifty from film. I guess back when I was in film, my life was just so purely creative at that point, where it was film and then it was music and then it was like writing as a hobby. And not that that's bad, but I realized that I guess all my life I had this idea in my head that, oh, I'm a creative. Like that's me, that's my brand. But then over time I realized like perhaps I'm a technical writer, or maybe
just delve into the more realistic stuff.
Yeah, like it's not all imagination sometimes.
Were you like into documentaries ba as a kid? More than like movies?
Oh, definitely not. Fun fact, I hate real life people movies. Okay, but like I don't hate
like
hate them.
Like you're talking like fiction, real life. Like realistic.
Well,
fiction?
I think hate is a strong word. I just prefer animation in general.
Yeah.
Like for any genre of film, I prefer animation. I prefer the artsy, fartsy looking films. But not to say that I don't enjoy live action films. I do. I have a lot of favorites, but yeah, if I had to pick, it really is animation.
What was your favorite cartoon growing up? Before we circle back to the topic.
Oh man.
You can like a top 5.
Top 5? Okay, wait. I'm gonna think. One, Adventure Time. I mean, that was not like late childhood.
Yeah.
But Adventure Time.
Because we were like teenagers na rin nun
iconic.
eh.
Yeah, for sure. Number 2, I would say Powerpuff Girls, because I mean, what's not to like, right?
Yeah.
About Powerpuff Girls.
And it was such a strong show too. Like people talk a lot about representation. Powerpuff Girls pretty much had it all. It just didn't have like a lot of people of color. But aside from that,
which is true.
Like, which I feel like they tried to make up for it now with the fourth Powerpuff Girl.
For sure.
But generally, like gender-wise, they were like really ahead of the curve, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And they had a lot of, I mean, just the fact that the 3 main characters were
all
little girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
the
that's
villains were the
solid
rowdy
already.
rough boys.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it was a pretty strong show.
Did you wake up early as a kid to watch cartoons? Because I was that type of kid.
Same. Like, I remember waking up every Sunday because that's like the only time we could really like watch TV, no school, nothing. So I'd wake up to watch Tom and Jerry.
You were a
I mean,
Cartoon
I
Network
think
kid,
yeah.
more than Nickelodeon.
Yeah, more than Nickelodeon. Because, I don't know, my parents really hated SpongeBob. Like,
Oh.
as a kid, I remember not being allowed to watch SpongeBob, or at least the only time I could watch it was if my parents were at work.
That's
But
like
yeah, Tom and Jerry was pretty important in my life.
I've
Yeah.
heard about parents who hated SpongeBob. I don't know why that's a common thing. Like, what did they tell you about that?
I don't know, I just remember it being one of those things where they were like, oh, this will make you stupid. Or this will like numb your brain or something.
I was very much a SpongeBob kid, and we really just ended up talking about cartoons, which is fine.
Yeah.
But like, I was very much a SpongeBob kid, and growing up, when I meet more people who are more Phineas and Ferb type kids, I never liked Phineas and Ferb. I never liked it too
Really?
much. Yeah, I wasn't like Phineas and Ferb type kid. Because to me, it's like it always showed itself as if it was clever. It was like half clever and half dumb. SpongeBob was like 100% dumb.
Yeah.
I appreciated the sincerity, you know. Trying to pose as like random and stuff, but like you want like random stuff like SpongeBob is.
SpongeBob.
And like when you ever meet pretentious kids who like British stuff,
Yeah.
like growing
Yeah.
up
Wow, you just took me back to like a whole phase in high school. Crazy.
of like Tumblr and Sherlock.
Yeah. When
Were you
everyone's
like
hair was in a bun on the top of their head.
Were you that kind of girl? Were you like a Sherlock, Doctor Who?
Oh, I was a Sherlock fan, but I've actually never finished an episode of Doctor Who, so I'm not sure how to feel about it. Yeah.
I feel like with people kasi who like British humor, they're very much British humor is so much better than American humor. But it's
Yeah.
like
It's like-
American humor is SpongeBob though.
Yeah.
You can't really beat SpongeBob sometimes.
True. That's true.
But yeah, circling back to the thing we were talking about. I guess it's just Jern has to have there's like an element of privacy, I guess, that comes with being a journalist, and
That's true.
I feel like that's such a categorical opposite from the life you were already building as a rock star, basically. So I mean, what was that adjustment like for you?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. It's not something I get to talk about very often. I guess I just wanna, I guess, oh man, I wanna cite like a time where we were asked to do like a gig or a recording for a company that, a company that I'll say like if I were to stick to my principles and ethics, not even just as a journalist, but like my personal principles. I really wouldn't, and we didn't take the job because I said, let's not do that.
We can talk about that
but I
after.
guess, yeah, but I guess that really was like that was an event that really made it apparent to me that the life I'm living right now, like if I'm trying to build some sort of career in music or reputation, I guess in music, I'm really gonna have to be very careful about it because I don't want to affiliate myself too much with any specific company or any specific person, party. Because again, I mean, like as you said, as a journalist, there's an element of privacy, not just, I mean, personally, like in my personal life, but in my stances. I mean, there's always that need to appear at least, or to, I mean, yeah, in the journalistic practice, there's the need to be objective, and so I don't want that to be already preempted just by me having all these affiliations or having worked with all these different companies. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty confusing, but I think I'm finding my way through it as much as I can. Yeah.
Do you still? How about logistics-wise, though? The logistics of, I guess just balancing a music career and balancing a journalism career. Music's like a very personality-based thing too, you know.
That's
and
true.
That's something that it's kind of hard to have in journalism, unless you're like you know, like Atom Araulio and like you're on TV all the time. Well, you
But
could
no
be
one's
on,
like
you could
Atom
be on TV
Araulio.
though, like really pretty and
Aw.
like, you talk really well. So like you could be on TV if you wanted to. But if we're talking like writing, do you ever worry about how you're gonna balance that?
Well, in all honesty, I never thought I'd still be in music. Like
Really?
entering college. I mean, I've been in music all my life, but never in the band type of scene. Like I've always been in like choir or just performing at recitals. It's never really been like a career option for me. But then suddenly college, and then I meet my bandmates, and then things just kind of happen the way they did. Um, but yeah, I honestly don't know if I have a definite answer to the logistics of all of it. But I can say for now that I think my journalistic career is above my music career,
Mm.
at least in the way I see my life playing out.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one, journalism is where I'm getting formal training, and
Yes, that's also true.
and yeah, and number two, practically speaking, like neither of those two industries are very lucrative. if we're gonna if we're gonna be honest, like I don't see my bank account being thick at all ever. But um I mean, practically speaking, I think there's more of a structure to the journalism industry than there is
Yeah.
right now to the music industry. So on the practical side of things, I'm leaning more towards journalism. Um, and I think music is a little more forgiving in that sense. Like if I were to make music a hobby, that would be easier than making journalism a
Yeah,
hobby.
especially because like the connections are so tight, and like the
Yeah,
world of
for
journalism is
sure.
like you people need to know that you respect the craft, I guess, to get
Yes,
in.
for sure, for sure.
And so that makes sense. That's actually really that was really perceptive of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of structure, that's so true though. Like, because you never
Yeah.
thought it would happen to Root.
Yeah,
Diba? Like that was
right?
like
Anything.
a firmament of, well, that's never gonna go away. And then you
Yeah,
just realize sometimes the seasons are really fucking bad.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Have you ever talked about it with any names? Okay though, the possibility of
The
ending.
career.
Yes.
Ah. um well, I think every so often, like every half year, every year, we kind of have like a realigning meeting where we set expectations for each other, because I think all of us, we're all in different industries. Like Lada is in studying to be an engineer. Rienzo is studying to be a filmmaker. Mike is currently working, but he graduated as a
Yeah.
psychology major. And then Arvin, I mean, he's a music major, but I mean, his work right now outside the band is really more in like orchestra, um, teaching music, etc. So, I don't know how they feel about it recently, because I mean, due to all of this pandemic mess, we haven't been able to really meet up as a band. But I think we all kind of know that other things are above the band for each of us. Like there are, let's say, life paths that we all want to take that might mean sacrificing commitment to the band, or at least some time to the band.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all aware of each other's hopes for life, like career goals.
Like no one's
life
taken it
goals.
personally naman. No one was like, hey, I want to do this as long as
Oh
I can
no,
possibly do this.
I don't think so. I hope not. But I think honestly we do all agree that we all want to do this for as long as possible. Um, that meaning though that we're like as long as possible, only meaning until that we begin other careers. I think.
Yeah.
Like I think that's where
That's
we're
fair.
at.
That's a
Yeah,
that's a
right.
that's a pretty
Yeah.
that's a solid time frame.
Yeah.
That's a measurable
Yeah.
time frame, you know.
Yeah.
You were, you've been mentioning kanina pa na you were like a classically trained musician,
Mm.
and prior to band stuff, you were mostly just doing choir stuff and solo recital stuff.
Yeah.
I guess first of all, like what was that adjustment like in terms of the band scene? I know we've been talking about adjustments a lot, but I feel
Yeah.
like I mean, because
Life
you've
is
gone
just
through a
a
lot.
big adjustment.
It really is, and you've gone
Yeah.
and you've gone through a lot of them lately.
Quite.
I've known you for like two and a half ish years, and like
Has
you're
it been
so
that
different.
long?
It has.
Wow.
It's crazy, right?
Crazy.
And in pandemic terms, like in pandemic measurements,
That's
it
like
could
15 years.
it's like 15 years, yeah. Or it could also be like 30 seconds. Like
That's
we don't we have no idea
Time
anymore.
Hushi.
But yeah, I mean, like, we've known each other for a while now, and you've gone through a lot of change. Even just
Quite.
visually, you just look different. And you know, that's something I want to talk about later. Pero, I guess, like, with the classical training into the band scene, like, what was that like for you?
Okay, one thing that really stands out for me at least is that all my life I've had a teacher. Like in classical training, I've always had like a coach, or in choir there's always been a conductor. But then going into the band scene, that's like the first experience I've had where the music is really what I make of it. Like there's no piece being given to me. There's no one telling me that to sing this way or that my tone is off. It's really just, okay, it's up to you. Everything's up to you. And your bandmates, of course. But generally, vocally, everything has been up to me. And I think for a long time, and I think until now, that's kind of a daunting feeling for me that I don't often talk about. Because, again, having a teacher my entire life kind of also meant that I've never felt the confidence to be independent with my music. Like with songwriting, I don't have the training, so I mean it's not something I would do outside the band. Like I only write songs that I release for the band. So that's interesting. That's like an interesting difference. But on a more positive note, it's what I make of it. So I've been having a lot of fun writing melodies and ad-libbing at gigs. Like there's no one to tell me that I did that wrong or that I should have sang this note this way, and if I screw up, no one's there to get mad at me. It's just like, okay, on to the next gig.
I feel like a lot of people don't even notice sometimes.
I hope not.
I mean, I will say about you, the classical training really shows a lot of times.
Oh, thank you.
There's because it's different when it's people who, you know, not to make this just like a simp session where I just compliment you the whole time. Like, I really do appreciate you, not just you as a person, but like your art. And
thank you.
your singing has like a very math kind of quality to it, which isn't like a bad thing. Like I'm not saying that in like a
I love that.
math
Yeah.
means not artistic, because that's contentious in
Yeah.
itself, but like in a way where it's
Yeah.
like very precise. You know what you're doing a lot of times, and
Thank
so
you.
that's actually really interesting that like you feel like you don't
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do get what you're saying, that I do agree, like my classical background, it helps me with writing melodies or with thinking of melodies. And it's more fun, like when you know the rules, so you can break the rules in that kind of way. But then I guess with the rules nga as well, there comes like this restriction that you've been trained to stay within. So I guess the challenge is more of trying to find out how to break the rules a bit. Yeah.
You might be the best singer that I know personally. And
Oh.
just the only one I can really compare it to, the math quality, is in the local scene at least. Like, you ever see that Wish Bus with Darren Espanto? The really popular one where he did Chandelier.
Yes, yes.
I was like,
He's
I thought
really
it was
good.
gonna be overrated because it was like everyone was sharing it. And then I watched and I was like, this dude sings like math.
Yeah.
Like, he knows exactly kailan kukulot and kailan
Yeah.
magano. It's like,
Yeah. He's really good. And like for his age too.
I get that a lot from you. And as a classically trained musician, I feel like with a lot of people who are trained to do something, there's always a lack of intrinsic motivation. And
Oh.
there are a lot of athletes who get burned out. Sometimes they just think that they're just playing basketball just for playing basketball. Or,
Yeah.
you know, or like people who are in science or engineering courses just doing that to please their parents. And I guess like how much of it for you is intrinsic motivation, where like I like to do this, as opposed to I have to do this because like this is where I get my validation. This is where Andrew gets to tell me like you're good at shit. Like, what's the balance between those things for you?
Wow, that's a really good question. Well, I really love music. I think I'm blessed to have, like, my parents made me do a thing that I actually like. Because I know a lot of people, I mean, yun nga, like what you said, a lot of people take up their courses or take up their, like, talent or their hobby because it's something their parents put them into as a child or something like that. But I'm really blessed that I do love what I'm doing. But you're right when you say that when you're trained to do something, sometimes it's just routine at this point, or like it's the usual dose of serotonin or validation. So, I mean, might as well. And I think in quarantine, especially, I've felt that a lot. Um, it's been really difficult for me personally to find any creative motivation. And then a lot of the times, I like to say that we're in a pandemic, like there's no, I shouldn't be pressuring myself too much to
That is true.
make an album. Yeah, but then um, there are a lot of times where I really do feel a lot of self doubt because it's like I know people who would kill um to have the career or to be where the band is, or to have the kind of platform that I'm blessed enough to have. And then for me to not have the motivation to use it, sometimes I feel like it's such a waste, or I'm wasting it. So I don't know, like um I guess it's also just a discipline. Like there are really times where I just have to sit down and be like, okay, if every day for this next week I'm gonna write for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, any whatever I come up with in 10 minutes, that's it. Um, and those things pay off sometimes, but yeah, I don't know. There's no definite answer to that question. It's different for every season of life, I guess. So
There have been gigs where you guys have played with big crowds, sizable
quite
crowds, and
yeah.
and I guess it's just how does it feel to play in front of that many people? I know people ask that a lot. How does it feel to play in front of be fair, whatever. But then I guess what I'm trying to ask is we talk about imposter syndrome a lot. Facebook talks about imposter
Yes.
syndrome a lot, and like how do you get where does that come in if you're already like how fast does that come in if you're playing for like a big crowd?
Um, honestly, I don't think I feel that imposter syndrome on stage. Because on stage it's just like pure adrenaline. And then whatever happens, just get on, get off, and then process it later. But then I think yun again, like there's always that feeling that a lot of people could make so much better use of the platform or of the talent, I guess. Like if I could give this talent to someone who is more determined or someone who is more disciplined, maybe that would be the better thing to do. Um, but yeah, I'm working on trying to not let it get to me so much as it used to, at least. Like as you were saying, we've known each other for quite a long time, and I think even as I was shifting to journalism, imposter syndrome was something that was really, I mean, I was struggling with because at the time it was like, who am I to say that I want to write for the people, or who am I to say that I should waste all this time, my parents' time, get delayed just so I can pursue something that I'm unsure of or that I'm not even sure that I'd be good at. Something like that. There's like a lot of imposter syndrome thoughts and all its underlings. Yeah.
Is it easier for you to play in front of people you don't know?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Why?
Like I guess it's knowing, it's the fact that you're likely never going to see those people again. Like when it's family or friends or even just people in masscom. Sometimes when we have a gig in masscom, that makes me more nervous than if I were to play a gig in like a different country, because I know that I'll be seeing these people every day, likely for the next 1-2 years.
Like when's the next time you're gonna go to Taiwan?
Yeah, exactly. Like what happens in Taiwan stays in Taiwan, but what happens in masscom,
It's always in this.
Yeah, I have to live
Mascom,
with for the next 2 years.
That's a college where like the only requirement to be in Mascom is to be chismoso.
communicate. Yeah, exactly.
Like, you just have to know how to
Exactly.
gossip and you're good.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
but yeah, I guess I was asking that because parang for a lot of people, it might also be easier though to run to people that you do know, especially after like a big show. And I don't know if that's
Yeah.
ever happened to you. Like who do you turn to for support when it comes to just when it comes to feeling that way or when it comes to being on stage that way?
Um, Well, of course, my bandmates. Like, um, we're the type of barkada, or we have this dynamic that we're not the type to update each other every day on like our personal lives. But then we have those really soft moments occasionally. With barkadas who are like always, cool and tough around each other, but then when the other person needs somebody, they're there. I guess I'm glad to have bandmates like that who I can just rant to out of nowhere or be frustrated about a gig with. Um, but outside the band, I guess I think of my best friend. Her name's Angel. She's not from UP, but ayan, she's from the other side of Katipunan. And honestly, I think that low-key distance, it's not that far, but then that distance is also helpful because when I do have to run to her for advice or for comfort, like there's so much to tell. There's so much
Yeah.
to share.
And
Um,
it's also easier when there's like no strings attached. Like she
yeah.
can't, like if you're mad at someone in UP, like she
Yeah.
can't just be like, well, this has problems with you because you're connected
Yeah.
to that person too.
Yeah. For sure. It's like
Um,
completely third party opinion.
that's great.
Yeah.
You were saying na parang like you feel like it's hard for you to say that you deserve to tell stories for the people. What does that mean for you? Like I is it like your background, like growing up where you grew up, or
Um yeah, I guess that's a part of it. I was saying like I'm a sheltered middle class private school girl. So not to be one of those people that are like, wow, we're so oppressed because people bully us online. Like that's definitely not where I'm coming
who
from,
make
at
TikToks
least.
about us? Fuck those
um,
guys.
yeah, yeah, that's not where I'm coming from. But ayun nga, I guess it's also like the life I've lived is so different from the lives of the people who need their voices amplified, and so sometimes I go into this spiral where I'm like, who am I then to say I want to write your story or I want to amplify your voice, basically. Um, and I guess there's that, yun nga, parang middle class guilt where it's like, oh, where do I stand here? What's the best way for me to maximize the privilege I do have, but also give the ample space that the underheard or the underserved need to.
Yeah, because like they have to be able to tell their stories
Yeah.
themselves.
Yes,
For
yes,
sure.
exactly. Yeah. So yun, it's just I guess a constant struggle. Like I'm not sure if I'll ever really have the answer to that.
Do you
Um
does it factor into your writing though
mm,
when it comes to like
I guess
songwriting?
songwriting.
Yeah.
Mm. Um yeah, for sure. There was a long time where I felt like I had nothing to write about or nothing of value to write about. Um because I know it there's always this idea that um good art comes from a hard time in your life or like a suffering that you went through. I mean, although I have had my fair share of hard times in life.
Yeah.
They're like in the greater scheme of things, sometimes they feel so small that they're not worthy to be written about, or it wouldn't really add any value to anybody to write about those kinds of things. I guess one example I can think of is like mental health. Um, Mental health, it is an issue. I mean, I don't think anyone could say it's not. But then it's one of those issues where it's like,
It's a good issue to have. Like it's a good problem.
yeah, it's
relatively.
like, there's so many. There's this one thing I was thinking of. It's like if your only problem is mental health, like if you're not thinking about what you're gonna eat the next day, or if you're not thinking about where you're gonna live or things like that. I mean, yun nga, I guess there's a whole class aspect to it as well. But that's not to, undermine anyone with a mental health
Of course,
issue.
for sure.
I mean, I also have, like, I also struggle with
Yeah.
mental health issues. But ayun nga, there's that truth that, like as you said, sometimes in the greater scheme of things, it's not the worst thing ever
Yeah.
to have.
Like, because it's contentious to suggest that like people who are poor don't have mental health
Exactly,
issues,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like, because I have mental health issues. Like, I know it's important
Yeah.
on an individual level. Like, I've had
Yeah.
bipolar for like 7 years, six
Mm,
years,
yeah.
and it's like, but then now it's also I get what you're saying, where it's like now it's like, man, does that even like really matter that much? Because
Yeah.
like I have to be able to compartmentalize this when
Yeah,
we're talking
for
about
sure.
like everything else is going to shit, you know?
Yeah. That's true. The
Like
world is ending.
why can't I be sad in peace? Like just
Yeah.
sometimes I watch shows like
True.
Master of None, like shows like sad shows like that, and it's like wow, that the life where I could have felt that way is like so far away.
Yeah.
Like where your biggest problem is like dating and like being a bad
Yeah.
significant other. Like
Yeah.
that's like so far away.
Whose life? Yeah.
um yeah, I like that you brought up, you know, the whole class issue because I know for a fact you and I feel the same way about that in terms
Yeah.
of like political values. I don't like it when there are like people who sometimes it also feels weird when that's all that they fight about, you know?
Mm. Mm.
Um I guess like pride is one too. Like as an NB person, it's like I know it's important, but it's also just
Yeah.
like there are farmers out there who
Yeah.
are like LGBT and they get
Yeah.
like, you know, I won't say anything because I don't want to trigger anyone.
I guess on the point of mental health and um pride and all those issues that I guess are more cultural, or I guess not direct class issues in a way. I guess I just wanted to say like that's where the intersectionality of all of it is important, because mental health and pride are important issues. Like there are so many people who are suffering because of inadequate mental health protocol or inadequate healthcare. And also, of course, that's why we have the Soji bill that's being pushed, and we have all these militant pride movements who are active and coming in. Like those are all very urgent and very important questions. I mean, issues. But ayun nga, parang as a person rin with mental health issues, but who is a middle class person, parang there's always I always feel that need to remind myself that oh, I mean, there it's intersectional. Like there are people who have the same mental health condition but cannot get the same access to therapy or a psychiatrist that I can, or who don't have a home that's as conducive to, like, even just studying can be such a huge trigger to any mental health issues. But yeah, even the space that you're studying in, I mean, that's also a class issue. And I don't know, it's just something that I hope people don't forget also.
Sometimes it's even actively distanced, you know? Because then,
Yeah.
like, imagine like what factory workers could do if they had like
Yeah.
adequate access to mental health,
Exactly.
right? It like there's
Yeah.
when because I feel like when we say that it's a class issue, it's not so much mental health of middle class or upper class people aren't important because they are.
Yeah, they
It's
are.
just we also have to realize these kinds of issues are directly separated from other people. Because
Yeah.
if a lumad or if a factory worker could verbalize the
Yeah.
oppression and gaslighting that they go through,
Exactly.
like that's
Like we wouldn't have. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole agenda, I guess, of capitalism. It's distancing the working class from that kind of education and that kind of access to the healthcare, to and mental health resources, and so that they're unable to and speak out, and they're unable to even see the trauma they're being put under.
see that's why I don't want to name names, but like you know I guess it just makes me kind of sad when mental health and pride are accused by a lot of liberal groups. I'm not gonna say which liberal groups or anything. I'm just like I guess it just makes me kind
Yeah.
of sad sometimes because it's like
Yeah.
this is a revolutionary tool, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
especially when it's used by companies for like so that they can seem like they're inclusive, or
for sure.
or so that they can ride a trend, when really it's not a trend. People's lives are dependent on these kinds of movements. So yeah, that's really frustrating. And there are brands that, we've also like refused to work with because of those kinds of issues. And it's not ethical. It's not great. Like it's not great. Like
Yeah, it really isn't.
it's poor practice, and ayun lang, parang it's just disappointing na yun nga, pride and even mental health can be like these things na, oh, I'm a mental health advocate, but then without looking into the roots of it,
Like
and like how
it's just a
affects
bumper
everyone.
sticker thing sometimes, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. That's the
I
word.
get that.
Yeah.
Shout out Jennifer Laude, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel bad
Yeah.
about that. So
Yeah, it's horrible, honestly.
you and I had similar backgrounds. Like I
Mhm.
said earlier, you just live over there,
Yeah.
which I feel like that. You know, I've always I feel like it determines a lot of how your sense of humor is and how you communicate with people. I think that going back to that whole thing about um growing up sheltered, the Soph that I met was like significantly different from the Soph now, even visually. Just like the way you dress and your hair.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, well, what are the things that led to that? Because we've been talking about change this whole time, and I haven't even asked you where that change stem from for you.
I guess I've never really subscribed myself, I guess, to a specific look or anything. Like, it's always just been something that, okay, I want to cut my hair today, so let's do it. Let's just do it. And I mean, growing up in a private school, you're not really allowed to express yourself appearance-wise, like with even the color of your hair tie is, censored or like
That was a problem for you?
Yeah, like we
Really?
in my grade school or in high school, I think we weren't allowed to use any color but black in our hair ties, or like a nude color, something like that. And
So
you weren't allowed
strange.
to have a boycott. You weren't allowed to
Were there rules
color
on
your hair.
earrings? Were there
Oh
rules
yeah,
on
you couldn't
wedding?
wear dangling. It basically studs. That's it. And then you can't wear necklaces, or I mean necklace. It's like one, and if it's like a pendant of Jesus or like the holy something, like
Yeah.
anything, in those Catholic school things, a rosary bracelet. But that's pretty much it. Yeah. So going into college, I guess it was a lot of just having fun with it. Which is why sometimes I get so jealous of those people who, in high school pa lang, they already look really good, or parang
Yeah.
they've already peaked when me entering college was like the first time I wore jeans to school, so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to tie my hair in a different way. But yeah, I guess the most significant change would be like the hair. I mean, from a boycott to what it is now 6 months later in isolation. But I guess, I mean, it might be a bit of shallow for other people to listen to, but I feel like my hair has always been so important to me with how it looks. Because, I don't know, it really makes me feel more feminine or less feminine depending on how I wear it. And I realize that femininity is really empowering to me in a way. Like when I cut my hair, at first I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. I mean, I feel great. But then I really feel like my confidence dipped in after that, like a few weeks or a few months after. So I've been trying to grow it out, and I don't know, it's different. Like it feels good. Yeah.
I don't think it's mababaw at all, honestly.
Oh, thank you.
Like I think, because like honestly, I, I came from a science high school, and
Mm-hmm.
like when you come from Pisay, which is a school full of nerds, it's like. 'Cause
Your
I
words, not
wasn't- 'cause
mine.
I talk about this like in every episode. Like I really fucking wasn't cool in high school. I really, really wasn't. Imagine not being cool in a school full of nerds, right? Like that's how, like you're like,
Yeah.
in terms of like the normal American TV kind of high school. Like that's like
Yeah.
the lowest of the low. So I really had no idea how to dress, like entering college, and it really is empowering to know like.
Mhm.
Like I've been firm about like, to me there are like two things that just solve a lot of issues without even being able to explain why. To me that's like losing your virginity and getting to choose how you dress. Like,
Yeah.
like you do either of those things, somehow like a lot of issues just go away. And
True.
I guess like getting to dress the way I dress, like getting to choose it and buy my own clothes was like really empowering. I like the fact that I actually kind of like that quarantine kind of forced me to not get a haircut. Like it feels a lot
Yeah.
more gender fluid, and I appreciate that. So
Mm-hmm.
I totally get
Yeah.
what you mean about just not feeling good about,
Yeah.
like hair, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not mababo at all, I think. Um I think like, you know, y- shucks, there was something I was gonna say. This I'm gonna cut
Go
this.
lang.
Pero I don't know. I just I feel like the reason din naman kasi na we've been talking a lot about transitions and all that is just like growing up talaga in Quezon City in like the 2000s. It's like such a middling time. I always feel like I don't want to sound mata pobre or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
like in as much as I do want to say that like I care about the masses, or I care about
Mm-hmm.
um or I can relate to everyone, I can adjust to everyone, and both of those are true. But it's also like sometimes like when you talk to people from the province, it's just different. And but it's also true when you're talking to like rich kids from Makati.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no idea where to place myself a lot of times, and I don't know if that's the same for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I guess for me, more than being awkward or more than feeling, I guess, out of place where it's like to my disadvantage, I just feel like I'm unable to add value to a conversation that I have with like any of those polar opposites that
Yeah.
you mentioned. Um, like I'm always the kind of person that wants to be value adding. I don't know if that's like living in a capitalist society where you always
Mm.
just want to be value adding or productive.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, like I guess that's also something that I want to work on as a journalist or as an aspiring journalist. For me, the writing has never been the scary part. It's always been the interviewing and the going out. And I guess I don't want to say again. Yeah, I don't want to sound like wow, I'm so oppressed because I'm in the middle class and I don't know how to talk to anybody. Like
Yeah.
that's not what I want to say. Um, I guess it's also coming from a place of like I've been struggling with social anxiety as well, and um, that part has never really been easy for me. Like even just interviewing an administration person from Mascom, that's already so close to home. Like that's someone I talk to almost every day if I have admin issues. But and I still find difficulty talking to them. But yeah, I more than a disadvantage. I like to see it as a challenge, I guess. Ayun nga, growing up where we did is kind of middling. Like I agree with you. But then yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too sucked into the division of all of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're more similar than we are different, and
Sure.
um, I want to be able to kind of go past the awkwardness and go past the fear, I guess, of not being value adding in conversation. I don't know if that really answered the question that you were
No,
asking.
no, that makes sense. That makes like a lot of
Yeah.
sense. And like it's I guess the value of being in the middle is just being able to bridge that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
um yeah, and I guess just like, but a difference between you and me was that, like as I mentioned, like that I came from a science high school and you came
Mm-hmm.
from a Catholic high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like you and I are both pretty solid in our Catholic faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
Despite whatever a lot of, you know, modern feminism or modern
Mm-hmm.
Marxism might tell you to
Yeah.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we both subscribe to that,
Yeah.
we're still pretty solid in our Catholic faith. And
Yeah.
but I guess that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because it, for me, growing up in like a secular high school, I actually kind of found it easier to find my faith, like
Mm-hmm.
in a place where there was like no God. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't know where what the difference is with you, as someone who, like, you know, in a school where religion is imposed on you, and like
Mm-hmm.
even physically, as you mentioned. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, how did you find your faith? Because I know that I found mine in a place where there wasn't any God, and I just like had to look for him myself, and it just
Mm-hmm.
made sense. So, um, yeah, like how was that journey for you?
Well, there's something that I always. Well, I do have a community. That's one thing. I'm from the Timothy Youth Ministry, so I do. I even have like a position there. So I've been there for quite a while, and um, there's something I always say to my friends there, where it's what I know of my faith now. I did not learn from school. I really learned it by being in a community of faithful people. Um, and I personally just think there's so much work to be done in Catholic education.
Or
Um, like, ayun nga, it's very inaccessible. That's one thing. A lot of Catholic schools are private. They're only accessible to a very limited number of students. Um, and so a lot of times I feel like what they teach is very detached, or very, they like to save face a lot of the time. Um, and that's something I don't subscribe to. I don't agree that should be happening. Um, and I guess going back to the topic of, you know, serving the masses and trying to be um a good person. Honestly, that's at the end of the day, that's what it is. I really find that those two things work together for me. Like, my faith inspires my activism, and my activism also inspires my faith, because at the end of the day, we're set to take care of each other. That's basically what it is, and um, yeah, I guess I found my faith too in college. Like, I agree with you that it's, for some reason, it's easier to find it in a place where there's no God, or there's no one God.
yeah,
Um, like in UP, I mean, everyone has a different God. Everyone, I
some don't
mean,
even
some
have
people
one. Yeah,
don't.
don't
Yeah,
even
some
have.
people
Yeah,
don't have one. So, um, I think it was easier for me to be sure of my faith, because there were so many contesting opinions, which I never had before in Catholic school. So, I mean, there it was always like kapa-kapa kung
yeah,
tama ba to, or kasi I won't get like a positive reaction if I do anything wrong from a Catholic school, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was just about getting 10/10 in your CLE quizzes.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, just pero I get what you're saying. I think that resonates with me a lot too. Um,
Yeah.
you know, just like Pisay and UP, like you really just have to search for it yourself. One thing that
Yeah.
you know, when you bring up your sense of community, because like I have my Catholic communities too.
Mhm.
Shout out to my org in UP, shout out UP Ictus, and shout out Days with the Lord. Um, pero like I think the thing that taught that those communities taught me about was like, also, by the way, just real quick, sorry to any like atheists or whatever listening out there. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to brand this as like a Jesus podcast, because
Yeah.
it's not naman, but like, you know, faith is important to both me and Soph, so I figured we should talk about it. I guess the thing I found in those communities was just like the importance of a personal relationship with God.
Oh
So
yeah.
I never felt the
Yes.
importance of that before.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I was always just the like I never doubted that God was real. I always thought it just made sense.
Yeah.
Like logically it just kind of made sense.
Mhm.
Um but it never felt important to me to have like a personal relationship with God. It was just
Yeah.
like it had I felt I was the type of person who felt like it had to be distant. Kasi
Mhm.
parang like because how can God forgive you, and how can you
Yeah.
say sorry to God if you don't have that kind of distance?
Yeah.
But you know, like, I don't know if that was similar for you, just like the personal aspect of your faith.
Mhm. Yeah. You're asking a lot of good questions tonight, Andrew. My brain,
Because
she's thinking.
I like talking to you. I missed
Yeah.
this.
Me too. Me too. This is like one of the first real conversation I've had in 6 months.
And it's gonna be
But
public to everyone.
wow, I love being seen. I love being perceived. Okay. But I think
Excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's really what I've learned too in my Catholic community. My idea of God before was really just more like an obligation, like I mean my family is also religious. So I mean it's just something I was trained to do. Every year we'd go visit the iglesia, and then we'd pray the rosary together, everything, go to mass every single week. Never, I don't think I've ever missed a mass, or
Intentionally.
like, yeah, missed a
Yeah.
mass intentionally. um but yeah, it's really in community where I realized that God is a person, and that for me to really understand the faith, I have to get to know who it revolves around, and that really begins in a personal relationship. And something that I really appreciate about my community, about Timothy, is that um, the first activity we do for new people is we hold this camp, we hold a retreat. And the first thing that you're told as a participant of the retreat is that you are loved. And I think that for me that is so new, because it's always been like, you have to love God, right? You have to love God even though you don't know him, or like all you know about him is like the Ten Commandments and what he
Yeah,
did for
just like
other people in
floating
the
bearded
Bible.
man in the sky.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's in the clouds or something. Like he made everything, so you have to love him, be grateful.
Referencing your own song. Joke.
I didn't even realize I
No, joke,
haven't
sige.
I haven't said that word in so long. But then, ayun nga, so it was very new for me to be like, oh, I'm simply loving God as a response. Like it's not me first. I don't love God first and he loves me. It's like I'm already loved, and so the only thing left to do is to love him back. Something like that. So I guess that's made my faith very real and very very tangible, actually.
Yeah.
Like when you love someone, you know what to do. You know how to treat them, you know how you're supposed to talk to them, the time, the commitment you're supposed to give them. And so it was no longer this like God and creature type of relationship. It was like a father daughter or brother sister
It's something
kind of
where, like,
relationship.
when you say tangible, like, I get that, because it's like sometimes when you like get really into your faith, like, love is something you can feel, like
Yeah.
physically. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel this way, but like, Lay's okay if I talk about this naman, because I've told this to her naman. But like sometimes when I think about people from my past, like whether it's exes or not, or like friends who aren't around
Mhm.
anymore, like sometimes I feel them in like different places of my body.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you feel that way. Like I have this one ex where like when I think about her, it's like my palms and like my wrists
Oh, that's so
like
interesting.
get accessed, and
Mm-hmm.
I have another ex where it's like my mouth. When I think of Lay, who I think is the first episode where I mentioned her, Lay is my girlfriend. I like that I
Hi,
get to
Lay.
say that. I like that I get to say
E.
that.
Sana all.
When I think it's relatively easy for you though. Like you're, well, I don't know. Let's talk about that
Eh.
after. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like when I think of Lay, it's like in my diaphragm and like my
Oh,
solar
that's
plexus.
such
It's
a
like a
nice
weird,
place.
and I guess like with God, it's similar. Like sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
feel it like tingling. I don't
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
Back to the dating thing though. Do- I
What, from
like
God to dating?
let's not like go into too much detail, because I know you don't want to get into too
Mhm.
much detail, but you really don't
Yeah.
find it easy? Like this being
Oh
this
no.
being like a musician make it harder, ba? Because I know for
Well,
like some people it's harder, but like for other people it's like so much easier. Like you just like have sex on the stage
um,
or whatever, and it's like
well, one, I don't think I'm the type of person to do that.
yeah, I
Like
wouldn't think so either.
it's not in my system. Not that I'm, judging other people. It's just like it's not for me.
Yeah,
But then yeah, I don't know. It's never been a strong suit of mine ever. Like I've been rejected more times than I've been than
that's
I've been.
strange. Really?
Yeah, or I've like how do you say? Like I've had more crushes who didn't like me than crushes who did.
That's
So
weird.
it's not that weird.
No, for
But
you?
then
Well, okay, okay.
no, it's
Anyway,
not.
go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I guess being in isolation for the last 6 months has also made me realize like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for to have another person depend on me and also to depend on another person. Like, I don't think I'm secure enough in myself yet to allow myself to have that kind of freedom. Yeah.
When do you think you'll know though? Like, is it a goal for you ba? Because like for some people it's not a goal naman eh, to have a relationship or to
Um, I think there was a time in my life where I was like, oh man, I just want to do it just to try. Like, I just want to not be that person that's been single since forever. But then, like now that I'm not that person anymore, I don't know, like it's not really, I don't think about it too much. Like, it's not a goal, but it's also not a goal.
yeah. I
Like,
get that.
if it comes, it comes, and I think I'm just learning to be more sure of what I deserve because, I mean, you're told a lot of things. Like, you're told a lot of things. You're made to think a lot of things about yourself in life, and I guess for a while, those thoughts that I had were kind of skewed, and so, um, I guess I wasn't treated the way I wanted to be or that I deserved to be. In retrospect, so I guess there's always that. I'm not. Yun nga, again, it's not a goal. It's not a goal. It's just, if it happens, it happens, I guess. Yeah.
God's timing, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Just so that I can end on the transition where I say that we have the power of God and anime on our side. I really wanted to circle back to
Truly.
God and then ask you favorite anime of all time. Last
man.
question.
Uh,
Mine's FLCL,
Okay,
just in case you needed to know. I don't know if you've ever watched
Interesting.
Fooly Cooly. Fooly Cooly is great. You should watch it.
okay.
That's a
noted.
Quezon City anime. That's like a
Really?
like you would like that, just purely based on where we grew up. So
Okay. um, okay. I'm gonna narrow it down because this is a very difficult question. I'm a big fan of like fantasy anime, like more in the magical dystopian type of vibe. So, oh man, okay. Yeah, so My Hero Academia got me sucked in so quick. Like one episode, and then the entire week I was doing nothing but watching My Hero Academia. So that's my favorite of recently. Actually, no, that's the one that got me sucked in the most. But my favorite recently of all the anime I've seen in quarantine is Bungo Stray Dogs.
oh god.
It's
I
so
love
good.
that. I love
God.
District Dogs.
Like, I heard mixed reviews about it before starting. So I didn't know what to expect. But then, in the first 3 minutes, like when Dazai was floating in the river for the first
It
time,
hits you right
I was
away.
like, I
Yeah.
fell in love. And I just love the themes. I love how the ethics of everything comes into play. All the characters.
It's a show where it's like it doesn't shy away from difficult conversations.
That's so true.
And like you're right, like the first 5 minutes you're already hit with like a trigger warning na agad eh.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. Like that's like normally like these kinds of shows take like 20 episodes to get to like the really
Yeah,
sad part.
yeah.
So like wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's crazy.
I appreciate that. I also think they're like the characters are just like really real. Like there are a lot of animes where it's like people are just like damaged for the sake of having like a damaged
Yeah.
character.
There's no
But this
redemption.
is like real. These are like real people. Like people have flaws, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I will say there are times where like it's like I don't know why people want damaged characters so much. Like the
Yeah.
people who are like, oh man, Ozai's not a good villain. It's like no, Ozai's a pretty freaking good
Yeah.
villain. Like
He's
Fire
great.
Lord, Ozai's a great villain.
Yeah, he's a
not,
great villain.
He's not complex, but he's a great villain.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just very simple that fascism is bad, guys. Like that's it doesn't have to be
tea.
more complex than
Yeah.
that.
You don't have to get to know the fascist to say it's bad. Jeez.
You really don't. I don't. I don't. There's stuff that I would like to talk about with you, when it comes to that and like damaged characters. But I do think, that might trigger people, and also we might be running out of time.
Yeah.
But I loved this conversation. I think this
Me too.
was a really fun and healing conversation for me. So
Thank you.
I
I'm
hope you
glad.
enjoyed this.
I did. Thank you, Andrew.
Is there anything you want to plug before we say goodbye?
Um, yeah, I guess my band. We're called Any Names Okay. We have social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. All at Any Names Okay. And you can follow me if you want on Instagram at Sofia Ines, but the S of the Sofia has
Give us a spell check.
okay, S period OFIAINES, because Sofia Ines was already taken, the real one. So I put a period. Yeah. So there.
All right.
That's
Thank
all.
you so much, Soph. I really appreciated this. And yeah, we'll hang out soon. Thank you so much for being yourself. Bye.
Bye.